Oh, some of you have annoyed Mrs. Gio. Some of you watching right now, you're Mrs. Gio's bad books. I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. But first, I would like to preview the game between Wolves and Aston Villa because we've got some Friday night football in the Premier League this weekend. And I always look forward to whatever game I watch on a Friday night. Sets me up for the weekend. Usually I watch 7 games of football, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 7 games of football. The first one rocks up on Friday night. I look forward to it. And it's Wolves against Aston Villa. Puts me in a good mood. Makes me want to dance. Oh yeah, do you like a bit of those moves? Makes me want to sing. Friday night and I like the way you move. Morgan Rogers. That works. I'm taking it. You need double syllables for both names, don't you? Anyway, Wolves, drawn 2, 1-2, lost 2 at Molineux in the last 6. However, those 2 wins were Game 5 and Game 6. So you could also say they've not won it in the last 4. Both things are true. But I've noticed a few complaints from Wolves fans over the last couple of weeks because the change manager, obviously bringing Edwards in. I think it was a case of we knew we were getting relegated. We know we're crap. But why do we have to accept being this crap? We've still not even equalled Derby County's record yet. In the January transfer window, they sold Larson, brought in Armstrong. It felt like they were preparing for the championship. But I feel all that's happening is Wolves fans are getting reminded that they've just signed a striker that's not good enough for the Premier League. Now, Armstrong might be, or actually, he will be good enough for the championship next season. But what happens if Wolves get promoted immediately? They're going to be in the Premier League in 2 seasons' time with Adam Armstrong, who's just reminding Wolves fans currently he's not good enough for the Premier League. It's a strange place to be at Wolves right now. Coming up against Aston Villa, which is a good place to be, but they need to be careful, Villa. They have lost 1 of the last 11 away games, winning 8, and they've also won all 5 away games against teams in the bottom 5 of the Premier League prior to that round of fixtures taking place. So I know what you're thinking, hang on a minute, how have they won all 5 games against the bottom 5 when they're still away to play Wolves? Because they played someone that was in the bottom 5 that's no longer in the bottom 5. Basically, when Villa go away to a team that are poor in the Premier League, they win. But they need to be careful. They need to be careful. A few weeks ago, they were in the title race. They absolutely were in title race. You may not believe they were ever going to win the title. That's okay. But there was a handful of points between them and Arsenal. That gap's opened up now, and they're now looking over their shoulder because their next 2 fixtures after this one are Chelsea, Man United. This is a must-win game for Aston Villa and Champions League football. It's getting tight up there in that top 6. You've got Arsenal and Man City, and then you've got Villa, Man U, Chelsea and Liverpool. Someone's not getting Champions League football. At the minute, Villa are top of that mini-league. They need to win here, and I think they will. I'm going to say Wolves 0, Aston Villa 2. Right, why are some of you in Mrs. Gio's bad books? I know why you're all wondering. Because the last 3 videos on this channel have done really well. That's why. The Daesh video did 17,000 views. So I was like, look, showing her. And she was like, wow, okay. And she was like, you deserve it. You work really hard. She was really nice about it. Then the next video was this edition last week, the Premier League preview. So look, 8,000 views. And she's like, okay, well done. But she wasn't as enthusiastic as the day prior about Sean Dyche. Then this week I did my video, my Premier League review. Spurs going down 1. 7,000 views nearly. It's like, look, these views are ace. And by then I could tell she just didn't, she switched off. She's like, well done. Complete monotone, nothing. So because of you lot, thanks to your lot's support, getting good views, it's meant I've gone and bragged to Mrs. Gio. And I can tell. It's a bit like when your toddler draws pictures for you, isn't it? Let's be real. They're crap, right? When your 2-year-old draws something, it's rubbish. They get a pen and paper and they just go, here you go, drew your picture. And there's nothing there, it's just a load of squiggles. But the first time you receive that art and you think it is art, you're like, wow, this is incredible. Well done. You're so talented. I'm keeping this. You might even put it on the fridge. Magnet it on the fridge. There you go, right? But about 3 minutes later, they appear with number 2. 20 minutes later, they're on their 8th drawing because all they're doing is going like this. It takes them 2 minutes per piece of paper. And the toddler, your child, thinks, this is incredible. I'm Van Gogh. Here you are. Look at me. I'm so proud of my artwork, Mummy and Daddy. Look at it. But the reality is, you enjoyed the first one. By the 20th one, you're starting to think, this is a waste of paper, this is, right? The first one was cute. You're just wasting paper now. That's what she is with me. I know if I was to present to her another Tartan Geo video, I think she'd say, look, well done. I'm not that bothered. Go away and create another one. Anyway, I'm blaming you. It's your fault. We've got a winner. Got a winner from last week's predictions. Congratulations to Drifter. He correctly predicted Villa would draw 1-1 with Leeds United, backing himself 3 points. He had a draw between West Ham and Bournemouth. He had Manchester City beating Newcastle. He also had Palace beating Wolves. And then he correctly predicted Liverpool to win 1-0 at the City Ground. He had Fulham down for 3 points at the Stadium of Light. And he also had Manchester United to win away to Everton, bagging himself 11 points. Drifter, congratulations. This is your prize. A shout out from a random Scotsman here on YouTube. Thursday morning. It doesn't really work. Your name's Drifter, doesn't it? Anyway, let's move on. Bournemouth against Sunderland on Saturday. It's 7 without a defeat for Bournemouth now, winning 4 of those. Only Man United have a better record in that sense, winning 4 of their last 6 at home as well. So Bournemouth are in good form. Generally, they're in good form at home, and they want European football, taking on a Sunderland side who have now lost 3 in a row for the first time this season, which I should stress. Whilst that's not good for them, losing 3 in a row, no one wants that. It's the end of February. They've lost 3 in a row for the first time since getting promoted, and it's the end of February. That is a tremendous achievement for Sunderland, or for any promoted team. And I hope that doesn't come across as patronising. It's reality. That is, to get this far in before you lose 3 in a row is absolutely brilliant. 8 away games without a win, though, for Sunderland, losing 5. That's not so good, regardless of if you're promoted or not. That's not a great streak. And it does feel like the wheels have fallen off a little bit since I've tuned in recently to Sunderland. Tactically, it doesn't feel like it's clicking as it once was. Missing Granit Xhaka. They've had their injuries, of course. They had the African Cup of Nations as well. A lot of these games fall into that period where they were without the likes of Diarra. They just need to be careful. They're not going to get relegated, Sunderland, but they need to just make sure they start putting a point on the board here and there. You know, European football at one point, it was a realistic conversation, although it felt ambitious. It wasn't that long ago. Sunderland were 4th in the Premier League. Right? They've had a brilliant season. Absolutely wonderful. And this is the problem when you have streaks. If Sunderland were winning, drawing, losing, and all season they sat 12th in the league, everybody would say, well done, well done. But because they've shot up and now they're sort of falling quite steady, it's almost like, oh, bad things are happening at Sunderland. And it's the same results overall. It's just because of the way they fall, because of the streaks, and because it's quite sharp, it feels bad. I don't think they'll win. I think they'll get beat on Saturday. I think Bournemouth will win. I'm going to say 3-1 Bournemouth. They're in good nick at the minute. They've got good players, and they'll be disappointed that they only drew against West Ham last weekend. They'll want to bounce back with a win. But for Sunderland, they're doing all right. You have to remember what their ambition was at the start of the season, and that was to finish 17th. They're not going to finish 17th. They're going to finish higher than that. It might only be 14th, 15th, maybe even 16th. I think they're going to fall, but they're still well on course to achieve what they set out to do this season. Then we've got Burnley hosting Brentford. Burnley picked up 4 points from their last 2 games after picking up 5 in the last 16 games prior to that, coming up against a Brentford side who have won 4 of the last 5 aways after only winning 3 in their previous 13. A disappointing defeat for Brentford last week as they got beat by Brighton at the G-Tech Community Stadium. They're still up there at the top of the table. I say top table. Outside that Champions League clubs, they're still there. Brentford feel like, although they're top of the pack, they feel like the outsiders for European football. But if they can pick up a win at Turf Moor, that will go in that direction. And I have to say, I'm almost impressed by Burnley because they lost so many games in a row. They were in, 16 games without a win in top flight. And they were 1 game away from equaling the record, which was set in like 1889. Then they went to Crystal Palace and won. Then they've gone to Stamford Bridge and got a point. It's a decent little return. And Scott Parker keeps saying they've got belief and they're fighting. I'm not so sure about belief because they're not going to get out of it. But they're certainly fighting. They're making life difficult for a few teams. However, I've become a big fan of Brentford this season. I'm going to say Burnley 1, Brentford 2. Moving up to, or down rather, to Anfield as Liverpool take on my team, West Ham United. Liverpool now won the last 3 without conceding, winning 5 of the last 6, and they've only lost 1 of the last 10 at Anfield, taking on West Ham United, who've only lost 1 of their last 8, 11 points from 6 after picking up 11 points from 6 after picking up 11 from 18 before that, but we have lost 26 of our previous 29 visits to Anfield. I'm feeling good about West Ham at the minute. I'm feeling quite positive. I think we've done playing some decent football, scored some really good goals. The last couple of results have been frustrating. Conceding a last-minute goal to Man United to draw 1-1 and then not getting a goal against Bournemouth to win that game. So we've got 2 points from those 2 games. And on paper, in isolation, it's good results. But given the context where we are, we could have done with winning one of those. And we're going to have to pick up points from places people don't expect us to, and that starts on Saturday. As for Liverpool, they need Champions League football. They are the team outside the Champions League spaces at the minute, but they're breathing down the necks of Chelsea and Man United. They will have belief, and they can still go on and have a good season. It might require them to do something special in the FA Cup or the Champions League for it to be considered successful, but it's still possible. They weren't good against Nottingham Forest last week. Arne Slot may have to make big decisions with his lineup, and I don't think he will yet. Another poor performance from Salah might see him dropped, but I think he'll start this one. I actually feel quite optimistic. I'm going to say Liverpool 1, West Ham United 1. Off to St James's Park, that's definitely in the upwards direction. Newcastle losing 4 of the last 5 Premier League games. However, they've won 4 of their last 5 in all competitions. Statistics, form, it'll tell you what you want it to tell you. I try and do both sides of the coin. Everton lost 2 in a row, but both games were at home. They've only lost 1 of the last 9 Premier League away games, winning 5 of those. And in fact, they've won the second most points away from home in the Premier League since David Moyes returned to Everton. So at home, not so good. Away from home, brilliant. Newcastle, away from home, crap. At home, pretty good. So it's a difficult one to call. I'm unconvinced by Newcastle. I'm unconvinced by Waltemada playing this number 10 role. I do not like it. Anthony Gordon's doing okay up front, but it's meant that, and I think it helps because it means Barnes plays, and I think Barnes is Newcastle's best left winger, personally. But it's meant Waltemada's dropped deeper. I don't think it works. I don't like it. And it's hard for me to believe that Newcastle are going to pick up big wins because of that. They're in the bottom half of the table currently. They're only 1 point behind Everton, who are sitting 9th, though. So it's very tight. There's a lot of battles going on in the Premier League at the minute. As for Everton, though, they were pretty poor against... The game against Man U was poor in general. It was a poor game of football. But I think they'll get something here. I'm going to say Newcastle 1, Everton 1. Then Saturday night, I don't like the way you move. Erling Haaland. There we go. I'm in the role. I've got this. Leeds United taking on Manchester City. Leeds have only lost 1 of their last 6. Picking up 2 points away to Chelsea and Aston Villa as well. Coming up against the Manchester City side, who have won 4 of the last 5, scoring at least 2 in each of those games. However, they've only won 1 in 4 away games in the Premier League. Leeds have got an incredible record under the lights. It's a 5:30 game under the lights, though. How do you define it? I know you're going to say the lights are switched on, but the lights are switched on anyway. Even like a 3 p.m. game, the floodlights are on. You just don't need them. There's plenty of daylight. Sunset is now slightly post kickoff. Do you class this as under the lights? I don't know. To me, under the lights is a midweek game or like an 8 p.m. kickoff. I'm not sure a 5:30 game. I don't class it as that unless you're in the middle of December when it is pitch black at 4 p.m. Do you know what I mean? I can't believe I'm discussing the definition of under the lights here. Welcome to Tartan Geo. Listen, if my crap singing, crap dancing, and now me debating what under the lights means hasn't put you off, please do subscribe. I would appreciate it. And do you know what? Share it. We'll just wind up Mrs. Geo even more with good views, hopefully. Leeds scare me as a West Ham fan. It's very difficult to predict Leeds to get beat, because they just don't lose many games. They've just been brilliant for quite some time now. Since the start of December, they've been absolutely brilliant. Away to Villa, got a point. Away to Chelsea, got a point. They're doing all right. But when they played Arsenal at home, they did get battered. I do think that a lot of that was down to set pieces, though. Man City don't carry that threat. But they are breathing down the necks of Arsenal. When Man City play, I should have wrote this down, before Arsenal, they've got like a really good record. I think it's like 1-11, drawn 2, lost 1 of the last 14, when City play the day before Arsenal do. So they're definitely good at putting pressure on, and I think they'll do it again, although I'm not confident with this prediction. Leeds United 1, Manchester City 2. Moving on to the Sunday games. Brighton hosting Nottingham Forest now. Just to stress, I'm recording this on Thursday morning, so I don't know what the Nottingham Forest result is against Fenerbahce, although I feel like it's irrelevant because of how good they did last week. I expect them to rotate a lot. Perhaps more importantly, I don't know what Crystal Palace have done in the Conference League. That one might be a bit more important later on in this show. But Brighton felt like an important win for them against Brentford. It felt like there's pressure on Hörsler, going away to a tricky place to go against Brentford. And they got the win. 6 without a win before last weekend. Only 1 win in 7 at home. Now, the Amex has always been a difficult place to go, and not just under Hörsler especially, but under the likes of De Zerbi and Potter. It's always been a tricky ground to go to. But only 1 win in the last 7. That's abnormal for Brighton. However, they're only 4 points behind 8th, so they're still banging a European race, but they've really got to, apply consistency. They've got to buck up. Hörsler's got to buck up his ideas. He got it right against Brentford, but he needs to keep winning games, and they could get, and do you know what? They should be aiming for European football. Pre-season, I had Brighton down to do well. Maybe my expectations of Brighton are too lofty, perhaps. I don't think they are. They've got really good players at that football club. Nottingham Forest, 2 games under Pereira. I've enjoyed both of them. I thought they played really well against Fenerbahce. I thought they played well against Liverpool, but I thought as the game got on, I could tell that they had a game on Thursday night prior. I expect lots of rotation tonight against Fenerbahce in the second leg, given their very comfortable position that they're in after the first one. Difficult game to call. I'm going to say Brighton 2, Nottingham Forest 2. But I'm going to be a Brighton fan on Sunday. Make no mistake about that. Fulham taking on Spurs, and I am definitely a Fulham fan on Sunday. Fulham beat Sunderland after 3 losses in a row, but at Craven Cottage, it's only 1 defeat in 6, winning 4 of those. Fulham have got a really good head-to-head record against Spurs. I don't pay too much attention, but I did notice that they've won 3 and drawn 1 in the last 4 against Tottenham. Spurs last week under Tudor, it's difficult because had that Moani goal stood, and I think it should have done, you might see a different game, you might see a different outcome. But if my auntie had testicles, she'd be my uncle and all that. The reality is they still lost 4-1 against Arsenal. The reality is Tudor's post-match press conference was very interesting. Just the way he was speaking. What's the goal of the coach? What's the goal of the players? We need to look in the mirror and take some medicine. Oh, wow. This guy's speaking as if he's been there ages, not just a week. They're going to need a reaction. And I don't think this is a good fixture. I do not think this is a fixture Tottenham are going to want. I don't think it's a fixture they're going to enjoy. And Fulham also in a European race. I don't know, it just feels like a Marco Silva type game that he wins. And I will say, the last 2 or 3 times I've said that, this feels like a fixture Marco Silva wins. Fulham haven't won them. I keep saying it and they mess up, they lose. I'm saying it again. This is a Marco Silva fixture. 2-1 Fulham. And then we've got Man United taking on Crystal Palace at Old Trafford. Man U, 5 wins and a draw under Michael Carrick. Is it time for Sesko? He's got to be knocking on the door, hasn't he? How many goals does he need to come off the bench and score before he gets a start? I think he might start him. But then again, Carrick might be thinking, well, he's a super sub. And remember, Carrick played in Man United teams who had super subs. And before Carrick joined Man U, they had super subs. So it's almost like United DNA. Like I said, it's a phrase I've heard quite a bit post-Amorim. United DNA. Someone that comes off the bench and scores a lot of goals. I feel like that's part of the United DNA that I grew up with. One loss in 9 at Old Trafford, obviously going back to Amorim's time. Crystal Palace, 2 wins in 4 after 12 without a win, but they do play tonight in the Conference League. And unlike Forest, they can't really rotate because they need to win. And they just don't have the players. They just don't have enough players. The squad isn't good enough. The squad does not have enough depth to be competing in Europe and independently. I actually think, on one hand, it might be beneficial for Palace if they get knocked out. But on the other hand, I think, but when are they going to get this opportunity again to go win a European trophy? And I know most people watching this won't. But there will be some who go, yeah, but it's the Conference League. If you think like that, you don't get it. Right, you don't support Palace, West Ham, Brighton, Fulham, Burnley. You don't support one of these clubs. You will support someone like Man U, Chelsea, Arsenal, who I understand why you won't be asked about the Conference League, and I get it. I don't think you should be. You have bigger ambitions. But for the clubs that aren't going to be winning the Premier League anytime soon, probably won't be winning the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup. I appreciate Palace won it, but the Conference League's an important thing. So I think Palace, although it might benefit them in the Premier League going out, and I think it will, but very quickly, if they get put out tonight, very quickly, they fall into this mid-table obscurity where they were before Glasner rocked up. Saying that, Sunday, I'm supposed to be previewing the Premier League game here, I'm going to say Man U 2, Palace 0. Palace just stink. They scraped by against a 10-man Wolves team who missed a penalty. They stink at the moment. And then on Sunday, I don't know if it's going to work, is it? Sunday afternoon, and I like the way you move. Pedro Neto. There we go. We'll take it anyway. Arsenal taking on Chelsea. Big win for Arsenal against Spurs. I don't think we can underestimate how big that win is. Pressure's on them. Drew away to Wolves midweek against Spurs, who would absolutely love to beat them and start their choke so that City can go win the title. And Spurs haven't had much to cheer about, but I would have given them something to cheer about. But Arsenal had character in that game. They managed it really well. Gyökeres put in a performance, the best performance I've seen in an Arsenal shirt. Huge, huge win. And I can't help but think about the Carabao Cup semi-finals between these two. Vecino rocked up, and I don't think Chelsea have been great recently, dropping points against Burnley and Leeds United at Stamford Bridge. And even when he was winning, it felt like the performances weren't that good. But I can't help think about the Carabao Cup semi-finals. First leg, Arsenal were all over them. Chelsea got back into it. In the second leg, I just didn't understand the pundits that were suggesting that Chelsea were unlucky and tactically got a lot right. They didn't lay a glove on Arsenal. Didn't even lay a glove on them. And Arsenal still beat them. Granted, it was incredibly late on. But, yeah, I think Arsenal are going to win this. But what will be interesting is if City do win, they're just breathing down their necks. But because I almost feel like part of me thinks Leeds might get something, and if Leeds do and Arsenal go into this game knowing that a win increases the gap at top of the table, they've got all the motivation under the sun, haven't they? I'm going to say Arsenal 2, Chelsea 1. Right, before you go, it's time for your predictions, if you don't mind. In the description below and the pinned comments, I've put the list of all 10 fixtures, copy, paste, give me a prediction for each one. And next week, one of you lucky lot, will be winning a prize from me here on Tartan Geo. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for all the support recently. It's genuinely, I just joke about Lauren. Lauren's genuinely really happy about Tartan Geo growing and doing well over the last week. Thank you. I was going to say it means a lot to me. It means a lot to both of us. Thank you very much. I'll catch you in a bit.